Alright, hi guys, how you guys doing? Welcome to day 34, no, day 35 of workout grind. So, just gonna change the setting real quick. Alright, before I start, I just want to say thank you for, I just want to give you guys a little bit of life updates. Just, a little bit of, a thing before I start because I won't be speaking, I won't be talking after working out. So I started a business. Yo, it's crazy. So it's a reselling of laptops. So I bought like a couple of laptops here already. Look. You see these? These are all Surface Pro laptops. Like, look at it. This is a laptop, and this is a laptop. Dude, I bought so much. Da? Nabil contract? Okay. There's so much, dude. It's crazy. Look at this. There's two identical laptops. Look at that. So apparently, in FB Marketplace, laptops here are very cheap. So I'm buying a lot of them and then reselling them in the Philippines, where there's a lot more people that will buy this stuff because it's cheap. So yeah, I'm starting a business, which is crazy, and I'm kind of scared because it's getting really expensive, and already committed, so there's no backing down anymore. It's like gambling, but it's under the premise of productive gambling, Crazy. Anyways, I'm just gonna do some work real quick and then just be back in a second. I'll just sign something in DocuSign, whatever. You don't have to care about this. Get out. Agreements. So yeah, it's pretty scary, honestly, because already spent like $1,000 for just 4 laptops, and yeah, it's equivalent to like 38,000 in our in our home country. 30,000 for 4 laptops, man. It's kind of, wait, I mean 38. That's what, 9.5 thousand each laptop, and we're planning on selling this for way cheaper. I mean, with just a little bit increase of price or something, whatever, I don't know. So yeah, I'm thinking there's a good chance that this is a good idea. However, I've encountered some roadblocks. So apparently, there's this thing called commerce tax, and you basically have to pay that, and the payment is a lot, dude. And like, it's a lot. It's 12%, man. 12% of total payments that you've done throughout your transaction, including the shipping, including the payments, including insurance apparently, but I don't really have insurance. Almacar, right? Almacar, Belinda. Yep, pretty much. 19. Yeah. So yeah, I run the risk of doing that when I buy multiple laptops. 5 should be enough though. I mean, like nobody really suspects 5 laptops, I think. Should be fine. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, apparently that's a no-no. I was planning on purchasing multiple laptops, around 20. So I basically spent like $5,000 for it, but seeing as there are some restrictions on how many products you can send without raising the flags of having starting to make a business, I could just do 5. And the thing is, the shipping here is so expensive. The only way for me to actually make a profit is for me to actually wait. Let me just type something. Blah blah blah. Pinoy Homes Melbourne. Yep, we're done here. So the only way for us to actually make a profit is for us to order a big box and potentially fill up that back box with a lot of laptops. But with the restriction now, I don't see it happening. So yeah, we're just gonna stick with, I don't know. Hopefully I can go with 6 laptops. I don't know. But yeah, 6 laptops, dude. Uh I hope that's safe. I run the risk of commerce tax with 6, but look, man, shipping is $120. You know how much that is? That's almost not even almost. That's half the price of one of our laptops. That's 4.5 thousand, man. So essentially, we're spending almost 1,000 um for shipping for just one laptop. 1K, bro, which is insane. I don't know if I want that kind of shit. But yeah, that's basically what's going to happen. And yeah, I've been yapping a lot, so I think I'm gonna just start working out now. Anyways, I'm just really happy that I got to actually start working with a business, man. I actually just wanted to see this as an opportunity for me to be exposed in the concept of business. If I didn't start this, I wouldn't know anything about commercial tax or shipping and stuff, or what considerations to take while creating profits, like commissions or sales or whatever the demand and stuff. Whatever. I'm dumb. But yeah, anyways, I'm just happy to share with you guys that I feel good. Like I'm doing things like that. So yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna start working out now. It's been like 9 minutes. So yeah. I've also made a great commitment to keep my room clean because I realized that the state of my mental health comes from the cleanliness of my room. You know, it's directly proportional. It's not like just an effect of one. Oh my god, I forgot to clean my water bottle. Fuck. Alright, anyways. What's this? Yeah, no, we're not keeping that. So I guess I'll be using this. Get my water now. Just a second. all my energy coming from this one, right? So yesterday is Monday. I'm supposed to jog in weekends. I successfully jogged in Saturday. I did not get to jog in Sunday because Sunday was the day that I went full crazy mode. Went super productive. I program while I go to a place to buy these laptops. 2 of them, supposedly 4, but I cancelled because I can't withdraw any more money. So yeah, got lots of things going on there, programming, and then I was supposed to actually jog, but I just ran out of energy. Like I'm completely drained by the end of it. So yeah, I guess I skipped that. And on Monday, I also kind of skipped because I don't know. I just sort of the time I slept at like 12 because I was kind of worried with my girlfriend. She's a bit sick, so I can't really sleep properly. But yeah, enough of that. Whatever. Who cares? Let's just go do some workouts. Let me just show you. I don't know. I feel like I'm a bit small. Like I lose my gains, but whatever, man. It's alright. Not working out twice a week anymore, but I am jogging. I do feel like my cardio is increasing. It's good for the heart. But yeah, I do feel like I've been losing weight, but yesterday I fucked it up because I ate a lot of food. I was binge eating a lot of things because I'm constantly hungry. I'll try to control myself with that, but that's the way it is right now. Anyways, I'm gonna just work out and play some background business thing for you guys. Let me just quit some things real quick. Timer. Clock timer. Nope, it's not here. Let me just set up like, I don't know, 3 minutes. Then I'm just timer, there you go. And then source, I'm gonna business. No, it's forgot to like. Oh, there you go. Forgot to like this.
How to start. Now, we'll tell you to start a business when you have an idea. That's not where a business starts. A business starts with a feeling, an instinct that perhaps you need to make a change, and then applying yourself to learning what is the best way to build something
Real
you
shit.
love. Now, everybody tells me
Yo, I feel like
starting
my
a
wrist is
business is
smaller now.
filling a market gap or finding a niche. That is not true.
My god, my wrists are smaller now.
Was a company called Fluid. This
I lost
company
weight.
turned into one of the biggest agencies in Asia, which I sold a price waterhouse people for more money than I'll ever need.
Or
And when I launched that company, it was
it gets stretched out, I'm not sure actually.
Exactly same.
But anyways,
So how did I manage to win? I
start
didn't have an original idea like everybody tells you to have. Start a business. You don't start with an original idea. You start with what you like doing. Now, I love helping businesses and people succeed.
I'm around
The reason I
here now.
say, the more detailed you are with it, the more likely you are to manifest it. You aren't going to be looking out for something unless you make it very clear what you're looking for. I mean, it's the red car theory, right? If I suddenly tell you the words red car, you're probably going to see a lot of red cars. But if I don't mention red cars, you probably haven't seen one at all today. You have to list out what you want. So you've identified what you love doing and what you don't love doing. You've identified your own moral code. And moral code, I can go into it a little bit more. It's quite a complicated thing, but there is one quick hack on this I can give you. Whenever I'm trying to find out whether or not someone's good, I don't care about money. I care about reputation. So I don't want to accidentally end up working with someone that all they really care about is money. And I have this test to check. I will say to them, what if from this day until you're 70, so let's say you're 30 now, in the next 40 years, you'll have the most amazing life. 3 houses, one in New York, one in Hong Kong, one in London. Anywhere you go, business. Next up, how to sell. Now, anybody can sell. It's a system, it's a philosophy, and anyone can do it. I don't care your background. You can be an introvert. You can still sell and understand the systems of selling. And if you are presently selling, I promise you, you are missing a few tricks that I'm going to try and help you with now. First up, how to sell is not what you have been taught. It is not, here's my product, this is how much it is, and this is what it does. The first thing in sales that you need to learn, and the number one thing I learned through the hard way of doing it, is sell the sizzle, not the steak. So what does that mean? Well, let's pick one of the best products ever sold, Apple products. Steve Jobs used to always set up events where he'd invite 3,500 people into a room, all the right tech reporters, all the right people, and he would then present to them the sizzle. He would not say, here's a phone with an Intel processor that has this and has that. He would talk about how this product was for the game changers, for those that wanted to do things differently, for the creative types. He was very specific about what the sizzle is. He didn't sell the steak. Now, in that process of selling, there's a couple of other lessons that Steve Jobs teaches us. Of course, he doesn't sell to millions through social media. He picks a community, 3,500 people in a room. He sells to them. He connects to them. He talks to them. And they go and talk to the rest of the world. Getting someone on your side selling for you is one of the most powerful ways to sell. The number one salesperson in my last company was my accountant. Why? Because I gave her the tools to sell. I told her what we did and how we did it. I showed her the sizzle through the numbers. We helped clients be more successful. We helped businesses starve off bankruptcy. We made sure companies did well. And she was proud of that. She would sell the sizzle. She'd sit with her other CFO friends at lunch and she'd say, we saved a company from going bankrupt. We made one company an extra £1 million a month they didn't expect. She would tell people the outcome. She wouldn't say, oh, I work for Fluid and we have marketing ideas. That's not exciting. She talked about the results. She talked about the philosophy, the sizzle. The second element of learning to sell is understand the process of selling. So many people don't. So many people start on what I call the third step. And you need to do 2 steps first before you ever start implementing the third step in sales. So the first step in any sales is understand your customer. Now it sounds so obvious and I'm shocked how many people don't do it. I often get emails that say, Dear John, or they say, Dear Simon, I really love what you're doing X, and they haven't actually researched what I'm really doing. However, when someone sends me something and understands what I'm doing, is clear on how they can bring value to me, I sit up and I listen. And that is the number one thing that people don't do in the first step of sales. Enough research. They do not spend enough time understanding if the person they're talking to actually needs them. They spend way too much time selling to people that don't actually need what they've got to sell. Don't waste your time with people that don't need what you've got. Focus on the people that do need what you've got. First step is, do they need you? Get to know them. The second step in this 3-step process to get any sales done is understand the person you're working with in the context of, do you like them? This element of sales is so powerful. If you can have a real connection with the person you're selling to, a genuine connection, not a fake connection, it is something that will help you get through all sorts of difficult times in that relationship. You need to like each other. You need to genuinely like each other. And if you meet someone who needs what you need, but they don't like you and you don't like them, one, the sale probably won't go ahead. But even worse, the sale might go ahead. Then you'll be working with someone that doesn't like you and you don't like them. If they're rude, they're abrupt, you go out for dinner, they're rude to the waiter, if it doesn't appeal to you, drop them. Do not work with these people. It might be hard, you might want the revenue, but I promise you will not build a business that will last if you sell to the wrong people. So, first step, do they need you? Do you need them? Second step, do they like you? Do you like them? If you do these two things well, the final step, and let's call it the deal, it will happen. Because if they like you and they need you, they will work with you to make a deal happen. I have done enormous deals every single time in my career. I've done the first 2 steps right, it's no problem. In fact, I have said how much I would like for, say, example, a contract, and that client's come back to me and given me even more, told me the budget, given me insight into how to make sure we get the work. So it's so important to not just go in there cold with what you've got to sell, but go in there understanding the person and making sure it lasts. If you follow these 3 steps, I promise you, you'll get every single sale done. Now, there's one more final thing I want to tell you about sales. You've got to think long term. There was a study done by Harvard. They analyzed the best salespeople in the world. And the top 50 salespeople in the world would, on average, approach someone to get a deal done 5 times. They would send them an email, for example, and then a few weeks later they'd send them a follow-up email, and then maybe they'd send them a brochure or contact them through social media. They would basically contact maximum of 5 times before they would actually consider that lead dead. And that was their mistake. And we're talking about the leading salespeople. But the top 1% of salespeople, which it turns out I am one of these people. I didn't know it at the time, I now know it looking at the research. The top 1% of salespeople do something very different. When I started Fluid, I wrote down all 50 companies that I wanted to work with in the building of this business. And there were big names on there. And from day one, I built a system to reach out to them by hook or by crook in some way every single month. For example, at Christmas, I would wish them a Merry Christmas, send them a card. Chinese New Year, I'd send them something. When I learned something about their industry that I thought could be useful to them, a bit of research, I would send it to them. I would always make sure that every single month I made contact with them in some way, not to sell necessarily, but to build a relationship, to get to know what their needs were. In some cases, I got those clients quite quick, but in the majority of the businesses, it took me, for example, 9 years to get some of those companies on board. Every single month for 9 years, I would approach those companies. And that's the secret to it. It's a long game. You have to apply yourself, build a system in sales that lasts. It cannot be one email, they don't reply, or one email and they say no. You've got to keep staying in contact with them. Building things like email lists are still very powerful. I know it's not as cool these days as being popular on TikTok, but I promise you, having an email list where you can contact that person regularly, keep them up to date of what you're doing, keep up to date with what they're doing, will ensure a sale at some point in the future, as long as you're politely persistent. I promise you, you follow these rules in sales, your life will change. I would add, in sales, people don't bring their personality into the mix enough. You've got to be yourself, be honest, be authentic. In sales, it's not about selling someone a car that doesn't work. That is bullshit. That is how people are projecting what sales looks like. Sales is about selling someone a car they actually need. I have seen in my own life, when I've gone to buy a car, the best salespeople tell me, you don't want this car, you want that car, in another showroom where they don't get the commission. I've actually had that happen. And when I saw that happen, I hired that person because that person is thinking long term. They're not trying to sell me a car to make the commission. They're building a relationship with me, and that is what you need to do to be successful in sales. Next up, how to market. This is a deep subject, but I'm going to try and give you all the knowledge I've gained in decades of building some of the most complicated marketing structures there is. Now, marketing is one of the most important pieces in making a business work. And when I think about this subject, it's so complicated. I honestly think, because I know everything about this subject, it's like rocket science. I will start off perhaps by teaching you that in marketing, 50% of what you spend will probably be wasted. So if you've got 1 million views but the wrong views, it's wasted. So marketing is about really experimenting. Now, I mentioned earlier when talking about sales, sell the sizzle, not the steak. Of course, that applies in marketing too. But marketing is actually about connecting with people over time. The biggest example is branding. If you get the branding right, people will resonate. You're probably a victim of this. You would rather buy an Apple than an X other brand, right? You've become a victim of good marketing. And when, for example, the iPod launched, people all thought the product did the selling, it was such a good product, that's why it did so well. No, when they launched the iPod, they spent more money marketing that product than any company had ever spent on marketing a product ever. Marketing is not one thing. Marketing is a complex structure combining PR, brand messaging, product market fit. If you don't know product market fit, I can cover this later, but basically you've got to make sure that the people you're talking to will resonate to the product that you're selling or the service that you're selling. And marketing, in my opinion, is actually number one thing. It's understanding who your customer is. Now, often in business build, you'll see businesses focus on niches to start with. Now, it doesn't have to stay in that niche, but it's a great place to start. So Facebook, for example, it started off in universities. And by connecting people in universities, of course, now it became connected to everybody all over the world. But they understood their customer. They knew what that customer was looking for. And in the early days of Facebook, they put a feature on there called single or available. I can't remember the exact terminology, but they basically created a feature that let you know if that person was in a relationship or not. And that was designed to help the university students understand the dynamics between their fellow university students. And so they knew their market audience and they then marketed that feature. People would then go around saying, did you see Sarah? She's suddenly single. And that would be the marketing for their product. They built a tool in the platform that became what people spoke about, that created the marketing for you. And in my opinion, that's the holy grail of marketing. And this brings me on to point 2. I call this the staircase philosophy. So the best way for me to teach you this is to tell you what I have recently done. So weirdly, a few months ago, a staircase came up for sale in London. It's the first time a staircase had ever been for sale in London. It's ridiculous. And I heard it on the news that this staircase was for sale. And I told my brain instantly, we're going to buy it. Now, I didn't have an exact plan of what I was going to do with the staircase, but what I knew was that staircase symbolized something for my business, which was step by step, you can get anywhere you want. But also, I knew I could newsjack. That staircase was a sensation. People didn't know why someone was selling a staircase. And 2 days after hearing it on the news, I owned it. I spent £26,000 buying it at auction, and then we did a couple of clever things that hopefully symbolize how marketing works. First up, as soon as we bought the staircase, the news channels that had reported it was for sale jumped on us. I knew they would. And they wanted to know why we had bought a staircase. And that gave us an opportunity to get on the front page of the New York Times, on the front page of the BBC, in every single newspaper around the world. Millions of US dollars worth of coverage for our platform because we bought a staircase. It doesn't seem relevant, but doing these wild things, these crazy things, can actually make a huge difference. One of the things that I always loved in marketing was when flash mobs were a thing. And what happened was suddenly you get a whole shopping mall, people would start dancing and everyone would wonder what it was, right? That is brilliant marketing. Now, it might not sell your product exactly in that exact moment, but over time, it allows you to have a reach and expansion and uniqueness to you that will help you stand out, because that's what it's about. It's about standing out. So by buying the staircase, We then evolved it. We got all this PR, millions of dollars worth of free PR for a staircase. Then we put a doorbell at the bottom of that staircase and we said, if you've got a dream, press a button. We'll then upload your dream to our 4 million following and get you free exposure. Well, that was what the press needed to do a follow-up story on it. Once you bought the staircase, what did you do with it? And they wrote all about that. But also, we built a whole new way of helping people on the back of a staircase that was for sale. I knew it symbolized helping people step by step. And then the final step in marketing, we all need partners. Marketing isn't about promoting something on your own. We then want to get a partner like Ring Doorbell or Amazon, who own Ring Doorbell, on board to sponsor the doorbell, to sponsor the staircase, to help us reach even more people. And then suddenly they pay for our marketing. And so marketing isn't a standalone thing. Marketing isn't a non-living organic product. You have to see it as living. You have to see it as evolving, and you have to see it as something that you do that pushes the envelope. Now, marketing is connected to sales. If you have a sales team, in a way, when they ring someone up, how they speak to someone, how they treat someone, that is also marketing. That's brand marketing. However that person receives your phone call, receives your interaction with them, will affect your brand. And that is marketing. Nike, for example, how do they do marketing? Well, they endorse the very best athletes in the world. Of course, in some cases, they make shoes with those very successful athletes. They are lining themselves up with these people that are incredibly successful. What does Apple do? Apple links to creative people. So therefore, everybody wants to have some sort of creativity in their life, beauty in their life. So they buy the product they think is for the creative people, right? IBM Notebook was a better product, but people didn't want that. It didn't symbolize something cool and sexy and creativity. So I think marketing is about, again, similar to sales, selling the sizzle, but it's also about understanding who your customer is, how to reach that niche, and then how to work with that niche to expand into the wider world if you want to scale. It's the staircase method. What's your staircase? What's going to make you stand out? How can you evolve that thing that makes you stand out and go even further? Number 3 is systems. When you're doing marketing, it is such an overwhelming thing. There's so many different ways you can do it. You can do email marketing. You can do social media. You can do PR. You can do branding. You can do events. I mean, the list never ends. So how do you decide which one to do? Well, first of all, whatever you do, you've got to build a system to do it. So if it is email marketing, then you have a good data collection system. You have a good data management system, and then you have a good way of pushing out the content to that database. And whatever one of these things you do, if you do all of them or you do one of them, do them well. Do not do all of them and all of them badly. I see so many people with on their website, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram links, and then you click through to them and they're dead. You're better off doing one well. Now, I think marketing is something where you should spread your bet. You want to do many different ways, what I call entrances into your business. You want to do many of them as you can. But do not overstretch yourself. It's better to do one platform on social media really well than try and spread yourself thin. But if you set up a system for doing your social media, there is a chance you can do all of them well with the same amount of resources doing one of them well. So for example, on my social media, I have one core video and then we edit it in-app for each of the channels. So we don't have to record separate videos for each of the channels, but we do in-app edit them so they're actually tailored to that particular platform's nuances, be it their font or their image. So you can actually set up a system to do all of these marketing things. But the key, of course, is not only just systems, but making sure you pick what works for you. Now, when it comes to marketing, one of the big mistakes I see people get taught is marketing is about having the staircase only. It's not about having the staircase only. It is about applying what you like to do as a founder, or maybe what your team likes to do, into your marketing strategy. As an example, if you don't like talking on camera, that's not your thing. As long as you're not hiding away from learning something new and you genuinely don't like to do it, but for example, you love to write, then doing an email marketing strategy is probably right for you. Posting on LinkedIn is probably the correct platform for you. Sure, you'll hear people talking about how good TikTok is and how much benefit they've got from it, but it doesn't work for you. It's not sustainable for you. It's not something you're going to enjoy. And marketing is something fun. This is something I want you to take away. No one talks about it, but marketing is meant to be fun. I took my son to buy that staircase. We had a laugh. Once we got the staircase, we had a laugh cleaning it up. We had a laugh putting a blimp on top of it. We had a laugh putting a doorbell on the front of it. We enjoyed the whole bloody thing. And if you don't enjoy it, what's the point? Marketing is about enjoying it. That's why I see brands do well. I'll give you an example. Starbucks marketing in the early days was two things. First, they would take good locations, sometimes quite close to each other. So instead of getting a billboard advertising Starbucks, they'd open up another Starbucks. And even if it was loss-making, as long as it wasn't more expensive in its loss than a billboard, they were better off having a store. Then people could have the experience. They never did any billboards. It's changed now, and I would argue it's not as good a brand anymore, but they opened up locations. That was one of their marketing strategies. The second thing that they did that was really clever is they looked after their staff, which sounds really obvious, doesn't it? But they did. They talk about their staff as partners. The baristas are partners. In some respects, the internal training manual talked about their baristas as the customer. And it worked. In the early days of Starbucks, to say what you like about them today, but in the early days of Starbucks, when I used to walk in there, a barista would know my name, they'd know what drink I wanted, and they were just working for Starbucks. They cared because they were looked after. They were given medical care, for example. They were given full-time medical care even if they were part-time staff. They were given insurance and looked after, and they were given days off if they didn't feel very well. They were looked after. And I think that this is also part of marketing. It might not sound it, but if your people don't represent you, then good luck making everything else represent you, because those people will create all the things that represent you. So do include fun into your business. Do look at the nuances of your business and figure out what is going to be your staircase, and ultimately apply your marketing love to something that's sustainable, that's going to be enjoyable, that's going to be able to actually deliver the very thing that you want it to deliver, which I think should always be.
Just a second, guys. Just need to do something. Right, so I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go back. No! What happened?
The promise of a better future for your customers. Next up, how to PR your business. Now, some of these things are interconnected, and sales and marketing all connect to how to get PR. But I'm going to give you some hacks and some insights in how PR works. And it is quite a complicated subject, but it's something, if you get right, can be a game changer for your business. Now, first up, I'll say getting PR has to be very targeted. I know plenty of people that have got PR for the money they've raised in their company, and it will go out to platforms like TechCrunch. It will make them feel good, but it had no impact on their business other than to make them feel good, which is fine, I guess. But I do think PR should be more strategic. I'd rather spend time reaching the press and actually getting a tangible result and not just playing to ego. So recently, for example, I was featured on the BBC News. They talked about what we were doing at the doorbell where people could pitch their dreams, and this led to hundreds of people finding out about it, going to our staircase, pitching their dream and helping them make their dream happen. Now that, in my opinion, is targeted marketing. Equally, I have done recently an article in a business journal that got zero reaction. Now, I was proud to be in the business journal. I don't want to say which one it is so I don't insult them, but ultimately it actually led to no value as far as what I wanted to do, which is help people do what they love and make sure people know there's a service out there for free to help them do what they love. So PR is very important to be targeted. And so I'll write that down first. Now, targeting can also be subjective, because a bit like marketing itself and sales, of course, sometimes you do need to cast the net wide and get as much coverage as you can. But if you do start to target your actual needs, it's much easier to get PR. I'll give you an example. If, for example, you want to let people know that you are now selling cherries on the side of the street, the best thing to do is get some PR in the local area that you live. Now, as much as it might be nice to say you've started a cherry farm selling cherries on the side of the street to make that farm work, probably could get you in a mainstream news channel, it won't necessarily lead to sales in the location in which you sell those cherries. So targeting and understanding exactly who you're trying to reach is actually the key. And it's more likely that if you are selling cherries in East Sussex, the East Sussex Times will cover you. It's more relevant, more chances of actually getting the PR than, say, for example, the BBC covering it, because it's not necessarily going to be that interesting. You could spend a lot of time and money reaching those people and then not cover you. The second thing I'll teach you about PR is journalists are lazy. So if you understand this and understand if you provide everything for them, then they don't need to do any work. You're more likely to get the press coverage. So what I always do is I actually write the press release like it's the actual story you want written, with a good headline that makes them happy that they're not selling you, because that's, journalists don't want to write and sell you, they want to write something that's interesting for the reader. So making a good subject line that's good for the reader, and making the story good for the reader, I do all the work for the journalist. And then things like photos, I take high resolution photos and I send them with the press clip to make sure they've got everything they need. All they have to do is say yes to the story and then put their own touch on it. Job done. They're human beings. They want to go out for lunch if they can. So if you can make it possible for them to go out for lunch and do their job, then you will win in PR. Too many people are lazy. They send press releases that are generic and they don't tailor it to the journalist they're writing to. So the other thing you need to do is research that journalist. Back to the targeting, you need to understand what that journalist writes about, what that journalist is interested in, and almost write in their style if you want that particular journalist to write about you. The third thing on PR I'll tell you is There is a lot of companies out there that will tell you they can get you PR. Please be careful. Now, as much as it might be nice to just pay someone to do this, I have discovered doing the PR yourself, especially if you're a small business, can pay huge dividends. Why? Because you can make a relationship direct with the journalist. And how do you find these journalistic contacts? That's what the PR companies tell you they've got. You can go for a newspaper and find them. You can Google them. You'll find them quite quick. And one big hack I'll give you is Twitter in particular is really good to get hold of journalists. If you start following the journalists that you want to write about you and you start engaging on their posts, I would say that's one of the best ways to start building up a relationship with a journalist. Most people will reply to comments or read a comment that you've made on one of their posts. And weirdly enough, often journalists don't have big followings and they don't actually have a lot of comments. So you can start making a relationship, start commenting on something. If they post something about global warming and you've got a product that's helping reduce global warming, then you will get noticed if you start commenting on a story they've done about it. Start being part of their thinking when it comes to, I need someone to help me write this story. I need someone to give me a quote to make this story better. Start becoming part of that journalist's life. And it starts with just following them on Twitter or replying to one of their comments, engaging on one of the stories they've already written. Even online, things like Daily Mail, the journalists will read the comments on their own story. So engage. Engage is the number one thing I can tell you when it comes to getting PR from journalists. And finally, I have been involved in many conversations where I know brands have not worked with someone because they saw on someone's social media that they posted something obscene or rude or stupid. Remember, you as a business owner will always be the number one PR engine. Whatever you post up, be conscious, be careful. Think about your brand, think about the image that you're projecting. And I can't tell you enough how important this is, because if you do the first few things I've just mentioned, you connect with the press, you know who you're targeting, and you're not lazy, you help them do it. If a journalist sees that you are out of control or inappropriate, they will not risk their job to write about you. So learn to be disciplined. Learn to be the brand. PR starts with one person having respect for you. So make sure you're disciplined. Don't be lazy yourself. Next up, one of my favorite subjects, one of the questions I get asked the most, how to get an investor. Learning how to get an investor can dramatically change the trajectory of your business. Equally though, just before I go into how to get an investor, I want you to think carefully about whether or not you need an investor. Now, I have invested in 78 companies. You can go on my website, simonscribb.com, and look at some of the companies I've invested in. I have seen it all. And sometimes, if you get the wrong investor or get an investor for the wrong reasons, you will have a new boss and your life will become a nightmare. It will be easy at the beginning when you get the money and will get harder over time if you do it wrong. I will try to teach you how to not get it wrong, but equally, please ask yourself, is there another way to make the business work? And I'm going to touch on other ways that you could make it work, even if you don't get an investor, within this how to get an investor chat. Now, there are quite...
Sorry guys, I think I have to pause for a little bit. I just need to do a little bit of research in business. Because let me write that.
Should I tell you the name? Maybe I will just tell you the name. The Business Diary series. Welcome. Oh my god. This series is a series I'm starting in the month. Yes, I said month prior to the launch of my matcha brand. If you've been following me for a long time, you obviously know that I am obsessed with matcha. That girl that drinks matcha every single day. That girl that makes every single matcha recipe that there is. I am just a matcha girly through and through, to the point where it has become my life's passion and hopefully my new job. Now, here's why I love matcha. First of all, the beautiful color. Literally so many antioxidants. It contains an amino acid called L-theanine. This is responsible for giving matcha a little bit purple, like when you drink a matcha that's made from green moon, and that's why I want to give you guys the Business Diary. So this first video of the business of matcha, at the same time, I actually just recently ran out of milk, so I'm gonna make homemade cashew. The whole process. Let's go. Okay, as I try, and I was just like, wow, I just love the idea of like bevs. I love a beverage, I freaking love a matcha beverage. And then being the ambition to for the future, and this is what I said, I really love matcha and I show it all the time, and I think having that as a product would be super cool. And for me, that locked it in. After I kind of put my idea out into the world, that's when I started getting reached out to about like, hey, like I'm from this background, I would love to help you launch this matcha brand, blah, 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 until I eventually have the team that I have today, and we've been working on it, like I said, since 2022. I gotta freaking blend my cashew milk also, almost forgot, just like a pinch of salt, as well as a couple dates. Make sure that you don't put the pit into the blender because that would be bad. Kind of sounds like I accidentally did blend one of the pits into that. Oh well, it's probably fine. Now, this isn't actually really necessary with cashew milk specifically, but I'm still going to use a nut milk bag to strain it and wash my hands. By the time that I moved into my second house in New York City, I don't know if you guys remember that house, the more like wooden house I want to call it. It was just like the more homey house that I had. Once I moved there, that's when I was in the thick of trying to figure out my manufacturer. Yes. And so I tried so many different matchas. I was having so many matchas to the point where like I almost got sick of it. Almost, but I didn't, of course, because that's impossible for me to get sick of it. Testing out a million different matchas. That was such a fun time in my life because I was living for trying out the different matchas, trust me, until eventually I settled on the matcha that I have today. 1 second, please. That tastes so good. I think I was supposed to make this with more water. And give it a good shake. Yay! Okay, now I have my homemade cashew milk for later. Matcha all over my table. Literally, whenever I wipe down my table, it looks like this. And Amber gets, my sister gets so mad. The next biggest question is how do I launch my own store? That is what I was wondering. And this was definitely the most daunting thing to me. Is like, okay, well, now I need to figure out everything else. Like, sure, I found the matcha that I like, but you actually have to put a business together, you know, Ashley. Which, of course, I decided to use Shopify. Kind of like collabing with Shopify on this video is a dream for me because regardless, I was gonna use Shopify to start my business anyways. By the way, it's matchmaking time, so I am adding a little scoop of matcha into my chawan, aka my matcha bowl. And in case you don't know what Shopify is, they are a commerce platform that you can use to start, grow, and manage your business. They quite literally power the next generation of entrepreneurs, as well as some of the world's biggest businesses. Like, no joke, some of the biggest businesses, and everyone else in between. I also just totally realized I forgot to sift my matcha, so I'm actually gonna use, whoa, let's sift it into a different bowl. Anyway, Shopify really reduces the complexity of starting a business with a simple drag and drop store editor, easy to use marketing tools, and a back office to oversee all of your operations. Just makes things very easy. I also use Shopify to send out all of my matcha mob emails. That was through Shopify as well. Anyways, Shopify is having an amazing offer going on, so if you want to check it out, make sure to go to my link, shopify.com/yourmomashly. Go give them a look, and we can all follow our dreams together. By the way, I'm adding a little bit of water to my matcha powder. Do not use boiling water in your matcha, or else it will make it bitter. The actual perfect temperature, if you're hella extra, is 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm/hot, but not boiling. You want to whisk back and forth, kind of like a W foundation formation. When you're done whisking, the matcha should have a Gorgina foam on it. Okay, not me almost skipping over like the most important part of my business journey, but if you guys remember back in June of 2023, I went to Japan for the first time with my siblings for the first time out of the country ever, and that trip was really just to like immerse myself in matcha and obviously just try a ton of matcha, learn more about it, have a great appreciation for it. And we went to Fuji, we literally milled the matcha ourselves, got to try the best matcha in the world, and it was just such an eye-opening experience. And then after that, you guys know I went back to Japan a second time, literally like on my birthday I went to Japan, and this was to tour my manufacturer. So between the first trip and the second trip, I done more testing. I decided I found my favorite matcha that I love and that I really want to use. And of course I'd seen like the manufacturer online, but not in person. And so the last step for me was to just go there, meet everyone that's part of the process, see it all from start to finish, all the way from being at the farm, seeing the green tea leaves to every single, and I'm not doing every single step of the matchmaking process up until you get the matcha in its powdered form. And it was just the coolest experience ever and really brought everything full circle. Probably my favorite trip of my entire life. From there, I was like, okay, we're all good to go. Send in my inventory order, which was such a scary step because that's like probably the most I paid for anything in my entire life. So fingers crossed. And now the matcha's coming out in July. The matcha's coming out in July. Did you hear that correctly? July. Oh shit. Me when I'm clumsy AF, except at least I didn't break any glass. Knock on wood. Why is there so much matcha on my floor too? Now we can finally make the matcha. Actually, taste wet and vibe. Taste it. I just remember I recorded a podcast very recently where I went through my whole matcha process from like.
"90 days ago, I started a brand new Etsy shop with 0 visits and 0 sales, trying to sell digital products, and here are the results. In my first month in December, I got 351 visits and sold $182.40. In my second month in January, I got 560 visits and sold $283. And just last month in February, I got 983 visits and sold $675.70. So my total lifetime stats 3 months in is 1,938 visits and $1,165.10 in revenue. Maybe you're seeing these results and you're thinking to yourselves, wow, that's pretty underwhelming. I was expecting way more. Or maybe you're seeing these results and you're thinking that's pretty amazing. That's like a good amount of money. I have no idea who you are or what your circumstances are, but if you're asking me, I think this is pretty amazing because of what I'm actually selling here. But before we dive deeper into it, just to give everything a bit of context, we need to talk about my other shop. If you're an old friend of the channel, you know that I've been running another Etsy shop for the past 3 years or so. It's a sticker shop that sells labels for kid stuff. This is me formatting the stickers for printing. This is me getting those prints from the printer. This is me loading the prints into the cutting machine. And this is me popping them out after the cut. After that, I have to organize them, pack them, and get them ready for shipping. This is how I fulfill orders for my sticker shop, and depending on the amount of orders, I'm doing this maybe 2 to 3 times a week. And just for comparison, this is me fulfilling orders for my digital shop. Nice. This is one of the main reasons why I really wanted to start selling digital files. Even though my sticker shop isn't as labor intensive as a lot of others out there, I mean, if I'm being honest, the machines are doing most of the work here, not me. The obvious advantage that digital products have over physical is that they're infinitely more scalable. Don't get me wrong, physical products can be scaled too. I managed to increase my output by investing in bigger, more capable machines. And the next step, if I wanted to, would be to actually hire people to help with fulfillment. But if I wanted to do this with my digital products, I wouldn't have to get anything or hire anybody. Since the things I'm selling are digital and they can be copied and distributed for free, it scales all by itself. Plus, there's no better feeling than getting that notification for a sale and not having to do any extra work to earn that money. Every time I get sales, it's just pure joy, which is nice. I took a trip to Disneyland last year, and it was pretty fun, by the way. We went for the kids, but we actually ended up having a really great time too. I now understand why so many adults are choosing to go to Disneyland even when they don't have kids. Anyways, while I was there, I encountered another problem with my sticker business. Since all of my equipment to make and ship stickers was at home, and there was no way that I could fulfill orders while on my trip. Usually with my shorter trips, I could just change my dispatch times to compensate for my days away. But with this being a longer trip, I really only had 2 options, and that was 1, to put all orders on hold, or 2, to drastically extend my dispatch times. In the end, I chose to extend my dispatch times, which was fine with the majority of my customers, but I could see this becoming a bigger problem if I wanted to travel during one of my busier months when my customers need their sticker labels more quickly. I realized during this time that I've been focusing too much on financial freedom and time freedom that I overlooked another type of freedom, and that's location freedom. There's no denying how nice it would be to be able to make your money regardless of where you are in the world. While I'm a family man now and my digital nomad days are probably behind me, that type of lifestyle has always had major appeal to me. I just imagine being somewhere tropical with a low cost of living, working on the beach with my laptop. I've never actually done this, so I don't know the reality of it, but the dream of it seems nice. Running a business selling products with a low profit margin can feel like you're constantly treading water. Since you're not making much money on the products that you sell, you have to constantly worry about keeping your costs low and your operations efficient. It's hard to try new things. Your margins are so thin that taking a risk that doesn't pan out can lead to financial disaster. On the other side, if you're lucky enough to be selling products with a large profit margin, you have the flexibility to be creative with your business. You can include bonuses and promos with purchases, and you have enough money to be able to experiment with new product lines and marketing techniques. Basically, you can go above and beyond for your customers, and more importantly, since you're making more money on each sale, the work that you do will actually be worth it. One of the biggest reasons that I started a sticker business 3 years ago was because of the good margins. The idea of taking a sticker pack that costs $1 to $2 to make and selling it for $15 to $20 was really appealing. And while those margins are pretty good, especially for a physical product, nothing can compare with digital products. This is a huge advantage, and you can see this with a lot of other companies that sell software or other purely digital products. Compared to physical companies, they're able to spend more on advertising and marketing. They're able to funnel their profits into things that actually grow their company. While this all sounds amazing, in the last 3 months of being in this digital product space, I've learned about the downsides. I think it's important to talk about this too, just in case you're thinking of doing this. It's good to have a realistic picture of what you're getting into. And the first one is that in general, digital product niches are more saturated than physical ones. Making physical products is not easy, and it's something that most people don't even want to try. Not only that, if you live in a more product niches are more saturated than physical ones. Making physical products is not easy, and it's something that most people don't even want to try. Not only that, if you live in a more remote area of the world, the equipment to make the things that you need might not be available, and the distribution channels to get your products delivered might not exist. Because of that, certain physical product businesses in certain parts of the world is actually not possible. This is why, especially for people outside North America, Europe, or Asia, they're flocking towards digital products. So yes, one of the pros is that you can do this from anywhere in the world. You have location freedom. But the other side of this coin is that you'll now be competing with people from everywhere around the world. This makes it harder because you're going to have to get really good at what you do. Generally, if you're doing a physical business and you're just competing within a specific region, you just have to be as good as the people in that region. But now, since we're working with a global scale, you have to compete with the best. The next downside is that copying is easy. Etsy Marketplace is a copy fest. If you do any browsing on the platform, you'll just see that everyone's just copying each other. Less successful shops are copying more successful shops. It's just the way it works, and you have to accept it. What makes this particularly worse with digital shops is how easy it is to copy a digital product. When you're making physical products, your competitors that are trying to copy you may not have the same access to the machines that you use or the specific processes that you use to make your products. So even if they do try to copy you, their products won't be exactly the same. But in the digital world, all it takes is for a competitor to buy one of your items. They can make some small tweaks and put it up on their shop, and now they're selling an item that is just as similar, if not exactly the same as yours. And also because of this, digital files are easier to pirate. There's nothing stopping people from buying your products and sharing it with everyone they know, or posting it on their blog or website for other people to download. There's going to be some lost profit due to this, and that's something that you have to accept as well. Another downside is that some people are still reluctant to spend money on digital things. We all know these people, the ones that think that spending $5 on a productivity app to improve your life is too much, but they're more than happy to spend that same amount of money on a coffee or something similar. I was actually one of these people for a long time. While I think sentiments are starting to change, there's still people out there that will never spend a single cent on something that's not physical. Or even if they are, they're not going to value a digital thing as much as something physical. This is the reason why you see so many Etsy shops charging peanuts for their digital products. I've even seen people sell things for less than $1, which makes absolutely no sense to me because Etsy already charges 20 cents for each listing, so that's a huge cut into your profits. For me, I think the sweet spot for digital products, especially on Etsy, is somewhere between the $10 to $20 range. That's enough of a sale to make each spread worth it, but also not impossible to convince somebody to spend that much on a digital product. But yeah, in general, when it comes to digital products, pricing in a way that's both profitable for you and doable for customers is going to be much more difficult than physical products. So what's next for me? I don't know if this new shop is going to be a long-term thing, but for now, I want to keep going, so I'm going to keep going. Since this new shop doesn't take too much time to maintain, I feel like I can add this to my current workload and commitments, and it should be fine. I have first-hand experience on how fast and how big an Etsy shop can grow. I don't know if this new shop will be able to match what I did with my sticker shop, but I'm excited to see if it can. The next step is probably to work with some kind of a print-and-demand provider, just so I can turn some of my digital products into physical products. I feel like if I can do that, I can actually make more profit on each sale, since people are more willing to spend on physical things than digital things. Also, going this route isn't going to add any extra work on my part, since fulfilling and shipping is done by the print-on-demand service. I will be sharing more about this shop in future videos, and I do plan on making more of a step-by-step guide on how I got from scratch. It's been a while since I've been a beginner, but now that I'm deep into it again, I feel like everything's just fresh in my mind. I feel like I can relate more to the beginner's struggle, so I thought I'd share some advice for people starting out. There's an infinite number of things that you can do. It can be easy to be overwhelmed by all the options, and thinking about it too much can usually lead to not doing anything at all. If you want to really get started, the best thing to do is to eliminate as many of these options as possible. Focus on products or services that you know best. Look around you and look for things that you've bought in the last month or so, or things that you're thinking of buying. Why did you buy it? What problem are you hoping it solves? Is there a way that you can solve that problem for others in a better way? And do you have the skills to do it? Or are those skills something that you have fun developing? These are the questions that you should be thinking about if you're trying to find a winning product that's right for you, because you'll be familiar with it. There's no point in entering a niche that you don't understand at all, or you don't care about at all. So try to avoid that. Everyone is always looking for shortcuts and hacks, but what actually works, at least for me, is sticking to the basics. If you're selling in a marketplace, these basics are 1, having a solid product idea that clearly solves a problem, 2, taking photos that stand out from the competition, and 3, getting your SEO right. If you get all 3 of these things right, the sales will eventually come. With all the bad talk and bad press that Etsy gets, I still feel that it's really beginner friendly. New shops still have the ability to get sales, even against established ones. Despite all its downsides, it's still a platform that I really recommend, especially if it's your first time trying to sell things online. Again, I don't know who you are or what your circumstances are. I don't know if your numbers are better or worse than mine, but it really doesn't do any good to compare. Every business has its own trajectory. Some will start really slow and then they'll take off. Some will start off really fast and then burn out. Some will have super steady sales every month, and some will feel like being on a roller coaster. I think it's important to know that each business is different and to not get discouraged if your business isn't matching what you're seeing around you. Also, even though my Etsy shop is starting from zero just like everyone else, I'm not actually starting from zero. I've had another Etsy shop for 3 years and I've learned a lot during that time. So I'm actually starting from experience. I've done my best to distill that experience into 10 tips in this video over here. So if you want, you can check that out. If not, thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this useful. I spent the last 3 years building side hustles. I have a sticker shop that sells labels for kid stuff, and this YouTube channel that you're watching right now. These side hustles have been making more than $1,000 a month for a while now, and even more on good months. During my best month selling stickers, I made over $9,000, and during my best month on YouTube, I made over $7,000. Making this extra amount of money has really been life-changing for me and my family. I'm less stressed about money, I'm saving more for retirement, and especially in this economic environment, it's something that I'm very grateful for. Recently, I've been getting a lot of requests from people asking for general advice on how they could do something similar. So in this video, I thought I'd share 10 tips that have really helped me on my journey, and I'm hoping they'll help you out too. When some people hear the word side hustle, they think of driving Uber or picking up a second job. And while there's nothing wrong with these things at all, I personally look for side hustles that are more scalable. The kind of side hustles where the amount of money that you make isn't directly tied to the amount of time that you're putting into it. For example, it takes me about 10 to 20 hours of work to make one YouTube video. And when I first got monetized, this channel was only bringing in between $100 to $200 a month. But now that my audience has grown, even though I'm putting in the same amount of work into each video, I'm making 10 to 20 times that. And who knows, right? Maybe in the future, if I'm able to keep growing my audience, I'll be making even more than that, putting in the same amount of work. On the other side, if you pick a side hustle that's not scalable, if you want to double the amount of money you're making, you have to double your work, which is a problem because as a side hustle, your biggest constraint is time, which leads us to our next tip. People say that the number one reason they can't accomplish their goals or their dreams is due to a lack of time. But in my experience, it's actually due to a lack of time management. Seneca said it best when he said, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for our highest achievements if it were all well invested. But when it is wasted on heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing." This quote is so relevant today, and it's coming from a guy who was living in ancient Rome over 2,000 years ago, which shows that time management is really an age-old problem. And while it might be impossible to ever fully solve time management, one of the things that really helped me is embracing digital minimalism. Technology is becoming more ingrained into our lives, and for a lot of people, it's
What's up, guys? Today, learning to code can be extremely difficult. When I first started coding, I used to struggle a lot, but over the years, I learned a bunch of different things that have really helped me in my coding journey. So in this video, I want to share those things with you today, so maybe you can skip some of the struggles that I went through. Some of the things I'm going to tell you about may seem obvious, but some of them you may not have thought about before. So stick to this advice, and it will help you progress throughout your coding journey and advance a lot quicker. All right, so the very first thing I want to talk about is resources. The number one reason I think a lot of people get held back as programmers is that they're using bad resources. Whether it's learning to code or looking at documentations and tutorials to learn a new technology, a bad resource can be extremely discouraging. A bad resource might leave you confused, and you might question, why can't I comprehend this? And you might actually blame yourself or doubt your own ability to comprehend things. You might be like, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for being a programmer. I can't understand this. But a lot of the times, it's not your fault. It's not that you can't understand it. It's that it's a bad resource. And whether that's a teacher using complicated terminology that you don't understand when they don't necessarily have to, or whether it's outdated documentation that hasn't been updated and doesn't make sense anymore, a lot of different things on the internet that you'll run into are going to be really confusing just because the creator of the resource isn't either maintaining it or doing their best job. And finding good resources is actually a skill that you'll have to work on as a programmer. The best resources are different for everybody, but it's the easiest thing for you to understand, and usually it's something that gets straight to the point. So next time you're doing a tutorial, reading documentation, or watching a video, maybe ask yourself, if I don't understand this, is this my fault? Or maybe this just isn't a good resource, and I should try and look for a different one. Speaking of great resources, I think now's a great time to mention a resource I highly recommend, which is the sponsor of this video, Zero to Mastery. I've worked with Zero to Mastery multiple times now because every time I mention them, I get a lot of positive feedback from my viewers. Simply put, Zero to Mastery is an online platform with dozens of courses and online resources to help people learn how to code and get hired in the tech industry. Zero to Mastery has courses for every step of your career, whether you're a beginner learning how to code, whether you're a programmer trying to get hired, or whether you're a professional trying to advance your skill set. There's tons of content for whatever you want to learn, whether that's web development, machine learning, cybersecurity, Web3, or even if you just want to work on your soft skills. With over 1,000 hours of content, and they're consistently adding new things. They have world-class instructors, and over 1 million students have either enrolled or graduated from their courses. One of the coolest things they do is a career path quiz, which based on your current skill set and your career goals will recommend a path of learning for you. They have monthly and annual memberships, and clicking the link in the description will give you a discount. So go check them out and see if it's for you. I've worked with them multiple times now because the viewers' feedback is so positive about the platform. All right, so moving on to the next thing in your coding journey that's really important to focus on, and that would be the fundamentals. Foundational.
Next question is from Katie Conton. What are the pros and cons of drinking coffee versus energy drinks?
Oh, okay. You know what's funny about this is that coffee is genuinely objectively healthy.
Yeah.
It's full of antioxidants.
They've tried so hard to create studies where it shows the detriments of coffee to their dismay.
Yeah, I mean, now, of course, caffeine, you can overdo caffeine, and there's a big difference between people in terms of what's too much, what's too little. But that set aside, coffee's natural. It's full of antioxidants. It's a natural drink that shows lots of health benefits. Energy drinks essentially are trying to recreate what you get from coffee. Now, here's the benefit that I could see from energy drinks or like pre-workouts. Pre-workouts will often include other compounds that might have some benefit, like beta-alanine, for example, or maybe citrulline might be in there, or theanine, an amino acid that balances out the caffeine. But and then here's the other thing: coffee, some people have an intolerance to it. I mean, it is made from beans.
Yeah.
So for some people, like coffee, for me, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it bothers my gut, sometimes it doesn't. Whereas if I do like a caffeine pill, that never bothers my gut.
Kind of reminds me of sort of, I guess, pharmaceuticals versus like herbs, or like kind of going a little bit more in that direction, like something that's a little more condensed, like versus like artificially manufactured versus something that you can just grind up and take off of a tree. And so there's some like natural pathways there for the body to absorb it. But yeah, as long as you're adding all these extra items in there, which you're gonna find in most Starbucks and most, like if it's just like the pure source is coffee, and you know your amount that and how it affects you, and you can kind of manage that. I really don't see a whole lot of problems.
There's also natural limiters because of that too, which I think are another positive of coffee, right? So even if nitro brewed cold pressed coffee is probably the highest level of caffeine.
Yeah. One of them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But is nothing compared to a Rockstar, which is pumping out 220 milligrams of caffeine in a single dose, or a pre-workout that's 450 milligrams.
Exactly. You can get up there quickly.
Going through coffee you're probably less likely to overdo it, right? Even though all the positive health benefits of caffeine and all the research.
Passive income, the holy grail of personal finance topics. The ability to earn money without doing anything. It quite literally doesn't get any better than that, does it? And it's something that you'll see video after video and ad after ad talking about, pushing the idea that millionaires earn 7 different streams of income, so should you. There's just one problem. passive income doesn't exist. Not really anyway. There are, of course, ways of making money that deviate from your standard 9 to 5, where time spent working and compensation have a pretty linear relationship. But the vast majority of the so-called passive income strategies that you see advertised online, especially here on YouTube, are at best misrepresented, and at worst, completely fabricated to prey on the financially desperate. Now, it's not to say that some of these strategies don't have their merits. While I don't like the term passive income, some of these things might make you money over time. But for the ones that sound too good to be true, where you quite literally don't have to put in any effort, you're often more likely to lose money when you consider the fees and registration costs that you're being charged to even try this thing. So let's break down why passive income isn't all that promising, but why you keep hearing about it on today's Plain Bagel. Passive income is usually used to reference an income stream that is somewhat self-sustaining, in that once you set it up, it doesn't necessarily require your active involvement, meaning that you can have more time to yourself to hang by the poolside or play video games or do whatever you want. But outside the lottery or a lucky inheritance, there's not really such a thing as passive income, at least in that truest sense. Instead, when people say passive income, they're really referring to one of two things: investment income or entrepreneurial income. Now, certainly, there's nothing wrong with these approaches, and they do change how your effort is rewarded, but they don't eliminate that effort requirement. And there's a very easy explanation as to why anything that promises a high reward without any effort is, in most cases, a gimmick. But let's start by explaining these two streams of income. Starting with investment income, the idea of owning assets that generate some sort of yield, whether that be stocks,
To get started with your next exciting business venture, first let me explain how the home-based export-import business works. The home-based import-export business and the traditional international business are similar in terms of the questions we need to answer as we start and then grow. But in terms, the operating environment and tools that we use for finding answers are different. We use online tools and the internet as exporters or importers doing business from home. So all these technologies help us to make our dream. One of the prominent reasons behind many small-scale import-export businesses shutting down in the early stage is the mistake of choosing the wrong product. A product may look very attractive to you in the basic research, but the picture may be entirely different if you dive in depth. Proper market research must be done to ensure it has enough appeal to be in demand and therefore profitable. Other important aspects include where and to whom you distribute to. Begin with your target market. For both imports and exports, you should consider several questions such as what is in demand,
As the term suggests, business tax is a tax levied on taxpayers engaged in business. Now, one of the common questions asked is it the same with income taxes? Now, before we answer that, let's distinguish income tax with business taxes. The term income tax refers to a type of tax that the government imposes on income generated by businesses and individuals within their jurisdiction, whereas business taxes refers to tax levied on specified profit-making causes and business activities. Simply put, income taxes are levied on income, realized gain, or other similar nature, while business taxes are generally levied on business activities. Now, one of the more common business taxes is what we call percentage tax. Now, in general, if the taxpayer's gross sales or gross receipts does not exceed the VAT threshold of 3 million, they will be under percentage tax. Whereas, because of the enactment of the CREATE law, it reduced the percentage tax from 3% to 1% based on gross sales or gross receipts. But do take note that the 1% percentage tax rate shall be effective from July 1, 2020 until June 23, 2023. For other business activities specified by the tax code, they will have their own designated percentage tax rates. Now, for more information on Section 116 down to Section 126 of the tax code as amended, which pertains to
Want a good? Choose a song from our awesome features. Now you're ready to master your favorite songs on the piano on your time. Songs on piano? No problem. Online Pianist. You name it, we play it.
Right, boys. Gonna make might be one of the greatest, man. Might be one of the greatest. I'll become one of the ballers. Shit.
At my first startup job, I had no idea what I was doing. I came in with no relevant internship experience and frankly just didn't even know what I was getting myself into. In fact, fast forward many years later, I'm currently working at Notion. I joined as an early employee a few years ago. So I've learned a lot of things along the way. And looking back, there are just so many things that I wish I knew earlier on in my journey. So this is for those of you who are thinking about joining a startup, or those of you who are in your first or second startup and wondering, like, what am I doing? And is this still the right place for me? So for this video, I wanted to share a couple mindsets that I really wish I adopted earlier on by framing it off of Herman's whole brain thinking model, which basically goes over different thinking styles that we tend to adopt. So hopefully one of these mindsets resonates and is applicable to your journey. The yellow quadrant represents the imaginative side of you that's full of ideas. And I would say early on in my 20s, I definitely subscribed to the whole, like, I need to find my passion. I need to find that one thing that will make me feel fulfilled. And I want to say that statement that I just said right there is pretty problematic. And I realized that it was just so harmful for my mental health because I felt like I was chasing after this, like, unicorn. So now the mindset I try to adopt, and maybe I still fall into, like, the whole passion thing, is to treat myself like an experiment. And what I love about this mindset is that it introduces so much play in the process, where it takes away that whole pressure, like, oh, if this isn't it, then, like, what is? But rather, you're just trying things out and, like, following your curiosities, or, like, what excites you. And from there, taking a more deductive approach where it's a trial of elimination. And startups are great for that because, again, you jump in and you can go really broad, and it gives you a lot of leeway to try a lot of different things. So I would definitely take advantage of that, especially when you're earlier on in your career. However, the last thing I want to mention is that this shouldn't be limited to just your job. And I'm not saying that you need to get, like, a side hustle or anything, but just to dedicate other areas of your life to pursue whatever curiosities, and who knows, maybe something will happen there, or maybe you'll just find a really cool hobby and have fun. There is no failure here. It's really a matter of gathering more data so that you can make a more informed decision. So this blue quadrant represents the rational side of us, where logic trumps intuition. And the mindset that I would say here is to
Right, in a month?
Hello, at PrimeTech we develop open source UI component libraries, and making a living out of open source is very, very tricky. So in this video I'd like to go through my experiences about how we managed to do it, what went wrong, and what are the good decisions that we made. So if you have an open source project that you're planning to monetize in some sort of way, maybe some of these experiences will apply for you as well, or at least be useful. So it started with PrimeFaces in 2008. It's a UI component library for Java. Since 2010 it got picked up by the community after 2 years of development, and we've started to wonder if we can, actually I'm saying we, but I was working I'm used to saying I was working as a single developer. So I started to wonder if I can make a living out of this. So the first thing I did was training and consulting. It was a lot of traveling, but then I realized there should be an easier way so that I can focus a lot of time on the project without all traveling and outside work. So I created the pro support, professional support, where the service guarantees that there will be a response within 1 business day so that users don't need to go through GitHub issues and track GitHub discussions. So it went well. The majority of the enterprise companies, they decided to go for it. Some even never use it because many have policies saying that if you're going to use open source, there has to be professional support. So that went well. And still PrimeFaces, after years, like after 15 years, still we have numerous professional support service users for PrimeFaces as well. Then I made a mistake, one of the biggest mistakes. I think thinking now, it was like more than 10 years ago, but it was very stupid. I decided to sell the documentation for $10. So I know it sounds really bad, but I was actually, I was going nowhere. Either the project was going to stop, or I was quite close to being broke. So it went well, more or less, because there were many people who loved the project. It was like a PrimeFaces ebook sort of way, but the majority of the good stuff of the documentation was there. But I decided to cancel because it felt wrong, and decided to come up with the professional service as a replacement. That was it. So never try to sell your documentation; it never works. And the next part was that we tried. It was called this designer stuff of like a theme generator, how you can customize the themes of the UI component libraries. We decided to make it a paid add-on as well, but it really blocked the growth. So since last year they're all open source and free, and we are working on some new enhancements on that as well. So it's like saying that, okay, I have this nice UI component library, but to customize the colors you have to pay me. Never works. And because there was actually, we made some important revenue, but considering the pros and cons related to growth, it was something that we can just let go. But then we came up with we checked out the theme forest. There were many paid themes to choose from, like application themes with the nice menus and dashboards. And then we decided to come up with templates, and that was a game changer for us because right now the projects was sponsoring themselves. We did it for PrimeFaces, PrimeNG, PrimeRack, and PrimeView. Right now you can see all of our templates. So it's like you do it once, you keep improving it, and then it gives the users a nice, an easier way to kickstart their applications, a nice professional designed application template. Then the Tailwind UI popped up, and it was like some people were not happy with the templates of the theme forest because unlike our templates, they're like, I think, full of bloat. They just put they don't develop the UI components. On our side, we develop the UI components and use those components to implement the templates. But people were picking table from somewhere, tab component from somewhere, and it was all bloat. Then the Tailwind UI came out, like with the blocks, like idea where you can copy paste stuff and build your own layout and templates. And we also, and many other UI libraries just got inspired from that, and we implemented PrimeBlocks with PrimeFlex. There was also a Tailwind version coming up. So yeah, that was also really good, and PrimeBlocks sales are really sponsoring the project. Remember that PrimeTech doesn't have any project or investment, so it's like projects are sponsoring themselves. And what we do is that we develop multiple libraries. PrimeNG, PrimeFaces sponsors PrimeNG. PrimeNG sponsors PrimeRack and PrimeView, and hopefully PrimeRack and PrimeView will sponsor the upcoming projects. So right now, 15 people are working full time on these libraries. And the next thing that I missed was, I think I wish I did it earlier, was the Figma UI kit. As a developer, I didn't really care about the design tools and processes. I just write the code. But turns out after the popularity of the design tools like Figma, there was some other tools as well. Then the process changed. There was usually the designers just came up with the idea, the plan, the design, and then the developers implemented. And right now you see some AI movement on that part as well to speed up the process, which we're also working on. So we decided to implement our Figma UI kit and make it a paid add-on, and now working on tokens because it gives you many opportunities. Now we can even provide a generator from Figma to theme, which will be a way to monetize the project as well. So it opens up many possibilities. So templates, blocks, and Figma UI kit was the third one after support, of course. But support is tricky. With support, it's not like we have our own store and we put up the project and pay it on people. It's optional. People may like it, they just purchase it. But support, you have to actively get involved because you promise that you will answer in 1 business day. You have to expand the team. So it's not like really passive income. You have to actually work on the customer's case and try to help the user out. So another thing was that we're working on is this LTS. So for example, with PrimeNG, the older releases are now required an LTS subscription, but the open source versions do not. So that in case you're stuck on an older version of Angular, you can still get active developed PrimeNG, which is optional. So all the things I've listed here, like templates, blocks, they're optional. You're not forcing anyone to purchase them. That's the trick that I think that's the best of both worlds. You provide some paid add-ons, but never force anyone to purchase them. And what we're coming up using the same idea, which is the builder that we're working on, that's the UI generator with drag and drop tools with PrimeBlocks that combines everything in the Prime ecosystem, and the designer where you can generate themes from Figma or create your own design with style and unstyled mode, and it will be another tool. Also, we're working on a text-based AI tool that will generate Prime UIs, like give me a PrimeRack data table with these columns and make them sortable. So that's also coming up. All of these are optional, as you've seen. And this is just one thing. Some libraries just, for example, if you check out some of the libraries, they have the basic table version, but some table versions like expandable rows or scrolling are paid. We don't do that. We just believe that the core should be always open source and free. But what we're working on is that we are planning to come up with some paid components, like highly advanced suite, like not something that you face with every day. Usually component libraries, smaller ones have avatars, badge, things like that, and they have a library. But the thing that we're working on, which I call Prime Suite, will be the really advanced like sheet component that mimics Excel, like special like functionality. The full calendar, like where you have appointments, Gantt charts, HTML editors, not something that really high level, highly complex stuff, which I think people will understand the complexity behind it, so that they will consider paid. So over the years, as I mentioned, right now it's a teamwork right now, and after some point we've just realized that we have to expand our team. And in this video, I try to summarize what worked for us. So what to sum up, never try to sell the documentation, never try to sell some customization options like the theme designer. because it will be like, okay, here's my nice UI library, but to be able to read it, to be able to learn how to use it, like the documentation, you have to pay. Once you pay, you have to pay again to customize the colors and so on. That's just bad attempts. So I think we're heading in a nice direction with the unstyled mode and things like that, the optional add-ons. So it's like best of both worlds. So hopefully, I mean, again, as a side note, open source, I mean, this is just from perspective of UI library. Maybe you have something related to backend and API or some other open source, any kind of open source project. So maybe you can just realize the market, check out the competition if they're in similar libraries, see what they're doing, and try to come up with some optional add-ons with some limits, and try to come up with, which we're also working on, try to come up with like a subscription-based model, because you don't want to worry about your income every month. So if you just, to make it sustainable, you got to work on the cash flow and make sure that you're getting paid every month, because if you focus on one-time payments like we did in the past, there will be stress for the founders. Okay, this month was pretty good, but I don't know anything, because you cannot make any decision based on a certain month revenue. It has to be sustainable, and instead it has to be continuous. So that's why the subscription-based models are always preferable. So that's why we're working on.
Whatever, man. I'm just gonna go back to
A few different ways to get an investor depending on the stage of your business and how much you're trying to raise. If you're trying to raise money in the early days of a business, I would say to you, the more traction you have in your business, the easier it is to get an investor. Now that does not mean to say if you just have an idea, you can't get an investor. You definitely can. There's just less people that will fund it. So just like the sales stuff I taught you earlier, it's probably better to make sure that you actually know who you're targeting when you're getting an investor. What is the profile of the person you want? So if you're going after someone that perhaps will fund a business that has no traction, it's just an idea, then remember, those people's profile, they probably want quite a lot of equity. They probably want some involvement in the business to make sure it works. They probably want some sector relevance, industry relevance to your business, so they can add value, because no investor, I don't care who they are, just want to feel like money. Everybody wants to feel like they're bringing some sort of value.
Wait, when did I stop? Forgot.
the loading effect inside this button. So let's actually add that one. It's very simple, but I forgot to do it in that section. So here we have the current user, and also we can get the loading as well. And also we have another loading, image file loading. So when the image is uploading and also we have loading, we want to disable that button, the update button. So we go to that button again. So we want to disable this button. And if it's loading or
Hey, 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 hey. 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 Sir, ma'am. Come on. Come on. Come on. I got you. I got you. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm holding a freaking hawk. Hi. Hi. I gotcha. Hello. Hi. Okay. Look at these feet. This thing. Hello. Gotcha. You're good. You're good. Hey, 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 hey. 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 Sir, ma'am. Come on. Come on. Come on. I got you. I got you. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm holding a freaking hawk. Hi. Hi. You. Do you want to eat? Okay.
Your demise.
Oh my god. Hi.
You.
Do you
Alright, let's start with just working out straight up. Yeah. Anyways, I'm looking at my stream. Got distracted. Fuck. Anyways, I'm looking at my stream. Got distracted.
Investor can dramatically change the trajectory of your business. Equally though, just before, and you're not lazy, and you've got a product that's helping reduce global warming, then you will get noticed if you start commenting on a story they've done about it. Start being part of their thinking when it comes to, I need someone to help me write this story. I need someone to give me a quote to make the story better. Start becoming part of that journalist's life. And it starts with just following them on Twitter or replying to one of their comments, engaging on one of the stories they've already written. Even online, things like Daily Mail, the journalist will read the comments on their own story.
Yep, I just did a leg raise. Alright. Coolsy Ozies. So we're starting at concentration
You can check out this video
curls.
right here and
Shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up.
Invest in a business unless you can bring value. You've got to make the value the thing that gives you the edge to make that investment work. Otherwise, you might just invest in the stock market. If you can't bring value, you might as well invest in the stock market. And I don't think you make money from the stock market. Middle class people make money from the stock market. You make money like Warren Buffett makes money. You own a piece of a company you can influence. You can help make sure it's successful. So do your research. But these are the types of profiles that are often the best. Family and friends. Now, I know family and friends can be difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have family and friends with money. And I totally understand that. And I'll come to other methods. But I just want to touch on this first, because family and friends, the reason it's such a good thing to do is because they know you. You don't have to convince someone of your personality, your profile, your dedication. They will know all of that. They'll know the true you most of the time. That can be really powerful in speeding up the process of getting the money you need. Now, of course, we all know it can get messy if you take money off family and friends and you don't pay them back. So tell them the truth. They can lose all their money. That's all you need to do. You need to tell them they can lose all their money. In the wish to get investment, we sometimes go down the road of overselling it. And that's totally normal. But please be careful with this, especially with family and friends. If you tell them, you invest in my business, it could all go wrong, you can lose everything, then after that, it's up to them. But you make it clear. Don't oversell it that it's a guaranteed win. It cannot be a guaranteed win. Nothing ever is unless you've watched all of this video, of course, there's a higher chance, but you know what I mean. Please, please be careful. But I have seen it work. And often family and friends can also help you, which in the early days of any business, if that's the stage you're at, then getting help is probably more valuable than money. But I've seen it work. So do give it serious consideration. And of course, friend of a friend can also be the way to raise money. If you don't have someone in your family that's rich, maybe you've got a friend who has a family that's rich. Learn to leverage the network, because your friend recommending you to someone who's rich will be powerful. And it doesn't mean it'll also save you time. In the VC world, which I'll talk about in a minute, getting a recommendation is the only way to get investment. They don't take applications online, despite what their websites say. I've seen it. They don't. They take it from recommendation. So start really networking. The second thing I'll say, and I've never seen anyone else talk about this when it comes to getting an investor, and that is consider the people you want to work with you in your company as potential investors. So sometimes when you're profiling the people you want in your business, you will look at it and say, right, well, I can't afford the best, so I'll get this person, right? Which is fine, I understand that. But the smart people think differently. The smart people think, who are the best? And let's say I'm building right now a competitor to LinkedIn, helpbank.com. So I think, who's number 2 at LinkedIn? I want them to come and join me. They're never going to be number 1 at LinkedIn, not for a long time, but maybe they want the chance to build their own LinkedIn and come and join me. Now, the great thing about the number 2 at LinkedIn, definitely got some money in the bank, right? Some money to invest in the business. So I can, and I've done this many times, so this isn't just a theory, but look at your team. Look at your team members as potential investors. In the platform I'm running today, helpbank.com, the people that are involved in this business have invested in this business. Callum, who's behind the camera right now, has put his own money into this business. And he's got equity because of it, and he's taken a lower salary initially, so there's all sorts of benefits to actually doing it this way. You can get your cost down, you can get the best in class involved in the business, and you can bring money in to help make the company work. And it's much better to have money from people that are actually working in the business than people externally who are asking you for a report of when they're going to get their money back. The third thing you can do, and of course this is more traditional, but it is very complex, so I'll try to explain how to go about getting this type of person in your business, but it's an angel investor. Now, you might have heard the term many times. You've probably watched rubbish shows like Dragon's Den and thought that getting an investor is the dragon or the angel sits there with all the money and you are desperately trying to get that money off them by making them see your vision. That is the wrong way to get an angel investor. The best way to get an angel investor on board, once you've identified them and done the research to find out who they are, you've been very clear about what you're going to give them if they invest. All of that is common sense, right? I don't need to teach you that right now. Of course, you need to know how much you're going to give them and why, and I'll get into equity in a little bit later in the video, so you can try to work that bit out. But once you've established who you want as an investor and what you're willing to give them, the way to get an investor is completely the opposite to what you think. You think getting an investor is, hi, I've got a business, this is this business, would you like to invest? No. The best way to get an angel investor is not ask for money. The best way to get an angel investor is ask for help. Because you've identified the right investor, they want to feel value. If they can't bring value, they don't want to invest. And often, if you do it right, it's not like Dragon's Den. I've invested in 78 businesses. I always feel honored and lucky when I get to invest in a successful business. They do not treat me like a dragon. They do not treat me with awe. They treat me with respect. But they also identify why they've approached me, how I can bring value, and make me feel special. And ultimately, I then feel lucky to be involved in that business if they do that right. If you ask me for advice, you're more likely to get money out of me than you straight up ask me for money. Now, I'm not saying don't build ask into the process. Of course, when you do a pitch to an angel investor, you should definitely put in there you're looking for money. But the best way to put it is we're looking for money from the right people. Make it a little harder for people to get involved in your business. That's how you get an angel investor. You create FOMO, right? FOMO, you've probably heard it, but in case you haven't, it's probably one of the most powerful things. Fear of missing out. You make people understand, and you do it sincerely, that if they don't invest, they're missing out. That is the key to getting an angel investor. Now, of course, treat an angel investor with respect. if you can, prepare a correct and appropriate amount of equity they're going to get, make it clear why, explain your long-term investment plans, so how they're going to dilute, because angel investors often get diluted. So if you're offering them 5%, it might sound like a lot, but if you get another investor and another investor as things go down the line, that person could end up with 1% of the company or 0.5% of the company. And remember, most angel investors will be involved in the business. So make sure you actually need them to help you. Don't just pretend that you need them. Because once you get them on board as an investor, it will go pear-shaped. So it's not just about convincing the person to get on board. It's also convincing yourself that they're the right person to have with you on this journey in the long term. Make sure you do that. Now, the fourth way of getting an investor, more traditional, VCs, venture capitalists. Now, these types of profiles often a little bit further down the line in your business model than just a startup or an idea. Most of the time, nearly all VCs, although things have changed a little bit when there was a lot of money in the market, but most VCs will genuinely want a business that's proven that needs capital to scale. So the way to get a VC on board, a couple of ways. First, you identify, have they got money? Now, what happens with a lot of VCs is they're raising funds and they're deploying funds and then they're raising funds again. And they won't necessarily tell you. They'll take a meeting with you, they might meet you and understand your business, but they won't necessarily have the funds. And they'll tell you, what we joke in the VC world is you're too tall for radio. So you go for a job interview at a radio station, they reject you in that job, and the interview rejection reason is you were too short for radio. In other words, it's bullshit. They don't tell you why. But you can find out if they're raising. You can Google them to find this out. Don't waste time approaching VCs that are raising money. They won't deploy the capital, they will waste your time. The other thing you can do, and I think it's very important, is see who they've invested in before. And there's a good chance if they've invested in a similar business to yours, it's one of two things. It's either bad news or good news for you. If it's good, then they will invest in many different companies. So for example, there was an investment company that invested in all the Uber type businesses. They invested in Uber, they invested in Lyft, they invested in all of them. They hedged their bet that one of them was going to win, they wanted to be a part of all of them to make sure that they didn't lose. Other VCs will only invest in one company in that category. So just make sure you understand that. But if it's bad news and they only invest in one company in that category, then you can go to the competitor of that VC and create a rivalry between the VC firms. I've seen it play out many times. You make them feel like, well, they've invested in Uber, but I'm Lyft and I think we're going to beat Uber. Would you like to invest in us? And it's primal, but it works. So think about, again, have they got money? Don't waste time selling to people that don't have that. See the investor companies they've invested in before, understand that. And then 3, try to get connected to a previous company that VC has invested in. It's much more powerful for you to get introduced by one of the other portfolio companies of that VC than you personally approaching that VC. So try to make connections. And it's also good due diligence, by the way. If you speak to the company that got investment from that VC, you can find out whether that VC was decent or not, because some of these VCs are awful. So you can do your due diligence, at the same time, hopefully make a relationship with a founder that can introduce you to the VC when the time is right. Now the 5th way, again, I've never seen this way explained to people before, and it's not traditional, but I have done it many, many times, and that is work with your brand partner or client to fund your growth. So I had an office in Hong Kong and a client wanted us to open up in the Middle East. And I was a bit reluctant, which is why I think I found out about this hack. So I originally said, we don't want to open up there. I think they just wanted us to open up there and then service them, and they didn't want to spend any money doing it. But because we said no and they really wanted to work with us there, they offered to pay us to open up there. So this is a hack I learned, and I will use it many, many, many more times after this, that sometimes your client who wants your service or the brand that's sponsoring you will pay for your expansion. Sometimes it's easier for them to do that than go out and build it themselves, for example, or work with a new partner that doesn't understand their philosophy. So your existing clients can be your investor. And it can be really powerful if you do it right too, because that client then feels invested in your success. They're not going to make you go for a tender every year. They're not going to chop and change you as a client or partner or supplier, because they want you to succeed because they own equity in you. Now, of course, you have to do this carefully. So for example, if one of your clients is a bank and they invest in you, it can get very messy suddenly on the legal side. Equally, if you are working with a particular provider, let's say in my case, I work with lots of different online service providers, but I'm partnered with GoDaddy. But if GoDaddy invested in my business, it means all the other online suppliers probably wouldn't work with me, which would not help the people I'm trying to help, which is people starting businesses. So I think it's quite important to make sure you get the right client or the right brand to invest in you, but it can be huge money. And brands do have investment divisions. Google Ventures, Google it. Ironic. They invest in businesses. They invested in a coffee shop called Blue Bottle, a coffee shop. So it's possible to get Google to invest in your business, but you have to understand, again, the motives. Go back to my sales point I made in the video, earlier in the video. If you want to understand how to sell to these brands, use that sales system again. But ultimately, it's a way to raise money. Now, there's one final way I want to quickly flush out with you to raise money to make your business work. Now, it kind of touched on what I said at the beginning of this part of the video, and that is make sure you need an investor. Sometimes when people are asking me for money, I will ask them what they're using the money for. And most of the time, not always, but quite often, it's to get more sales, to grow the product, to make sure more people can buy the product and so on. But when I dig in, it's not money from me that they need. They just need a better sales system. So often when it comes to raising money, you'll find that if you can actually go look at your business and you might say to yourself, well, I need the money to buy the product. Well, you can do crowdfunding, for example. You can find methods of selling your product ahead of time through platforms like Indiegogo and platforms that will pre-sell your product to get you the revenue you need in advance. And you're not giving away any equity when you do that. You can pre-sell your product on certain crowdfunding sites before it's made. And then you can go and use the money you got from that pre-order to go and make it. And that is often a much better way than raising money from an investor. Of course, crowdfunding is quite big. Across the board now, you can raise money crowdfunding. You can do equity crowdfunding, and there's plenty of sites that do that. I'll put some links down below in the video if you want to check out who they are. But ultimately, you want to figure out whether or not you really need the money from a customer pre-buying it, or from an investor who's going to help bring value, or from a community that's going to support you in the future. You can do crowdfunding where you sell your product. You can do crowdfunding where you sell equity. You can do crowdfunding where it ultimately is just a loan. You can do crowdfunding where people just support you, like GoFundMe. Crowdfunding is definitely one of the ways I think today you should leverage before going to the more traditional routes of, say, a VC or an angel, or of course, family and friends. So crowdfunding is powerful, and don't overlook it. I'm going to put the links to all the different types of crowdfunding sites down below. Go check them out and let me know if you have any questions in this subject, because it is a complicated one. I will do a video in the future about how to launch a proper crowdfunding site, but that's not now. How to get a sponsor. This is something I get asked all the time. I'm going to give you the code. I'm going to give you the cheat code, I guess, on how to do it. And I want to first of all say, if any sponsors are listening to this, I have applied this technique on you, so forgive me. The first is understanding why sponsorship deals happen. We can get into what sponsorship deals structures are, and that's quite complex in itself, but I want to give you the tool today to get a sponsor on board. And the way to understand a sponsor, there's two things that makes a sponsor come on board. One is value return, right? What they invest in sponsoring you, they get back in some form, right? Be that in views or be that in sales, they get value back, ideally trackable value. So billboard companies, which I think are a joke, really in what they value-wise give back to a brand, sell because they show how many people walk past that billboard, how many people are looking at that billboard each day. And brands love that stuff. So proper ROI on their investment. The second way, and this one's a bit more tricky, but very powerful if you get it right, is the emotional sell, right? So you see this quite a lot in like local football clubs in England. Big brands sometimes are sponsoring small local football clubs. Why? Because the CEO plays football there, or the CEO grew up there playing football. Basically, the emotional sale. Now, I have used both of these to get deals, and both of them can actually work together. They're not mutually exclusive. Frankly, sometimes the emotional sale with the value return is probably the holy grail. If you can make it personal for the brand and the people running the brand, don't overlook them. If you're going to make it emotional for the person who runs the brand, alongside bring proper value, most of the time you can get a brand deal. Now, where people fall over is not structuring value for a sponsor, or, and this is probably the third thing I highlight that's important to get a sponsorship deal, you've not understood the brand. Now, I have made this mistake many times. I launched a business called Coaster Ads, and it was brilliant marketing. I took all the bars in Hong Kong and I put ads on coasters. I took out the Carlsberg coasters and the Heineken coasters and I put in coasters with ads on them. And it was brilliant because you put your drink down on that coaster, you up and down, look at it for an hour at least as you're putting the drink on it and picking it up. It was brilliant retention, brilliant engagement. People saw the ads every time. They're brilliant. But I tried to sell that service, that Coaster Ad service, to a jewelry business. And of course, they laughed at me. In fact, I lost them as a client on the agency side because they thought I didn't understand their brand. I was so sure that that jewelry brand would get traction, which they would have done, but I didn't remember what their brand philosophy was. And they're high-end, they're fashionable, they don't want a beer sat on top of them. I made a mistake. I didn't understand the brand. And this is where you need to get really, really clear. What is the brand value? And so in that case, in the jewelry case, they want to sponsor, 007 movies with James Bond's girlfriend wearing the jewelry and looking sexy. They want to be involved in things that are not linked to beer, that are not linked to somebody drunk putting their beer down on their brand. Now, I did eventually sell Coaster Ads out to airlines that wanted to promote going from Hong Kong to Singapore and so on and so forth. So I eventually did really well with that brand. But initially I learned an important lesson. Understand the brand, understand what their values are, understand how they traditionally advertise. So Visa, for example, Visa advertise at the Olympics. They not only sponsor the Olympics, then they spend a lot of money promoting the fact that they're at the Olympics. Too many people go to Visa and ask for sponsorship without understanding that probably the biggest activation that Visa ever do is the Olympics. So you're better off going and selling some value linked to the Olympics, as opposed to saying, please sponsor my event, because they're saying, we sponsor the Olympics. We sponsor the biggest event in the world. Now you want us to sponsor your event? Brand values and understanding what that brand wants is key. But I mentioned it briefly a second ago, but I want to highlight it as important. Don't forget the people in these brands. Research who they are. Understand what their motives are. Some of the brands that sponsor me today, GoDaddy and Thai Banking, the people that run those brands care as much about entrepreneurs as the brands themselves. So when they see that me and my team are helping people, genuinely helping people have a better life, not only do the people buy in to becoming a sponsor for us, the brand alignment is there and it happens. Right now, this does tie into the emotional sell somewhat because, for example, one of the people I work with, GoDaddy, had a small business. She knew how hard it was to make that business work. So when she sees what we're doing alongside what GoDaddy does, and this isn't a sponsored video, by the way, but I'm just highlighting the example so you learn. Ultimately, these people make a difference in that brand. That brand is made up of people. So as long as those people don't get fired for sponsoring something that has no relevance to their brand, you can actually end up having champions inside these companies for you to help you get the sponsorship. And I've had that many, many times. Now, the fifth way to get a brand to sponsor you that no one talks about, I don't know why, maybe it's some sort of industry dirty secret, but it's a very, very powerful way of getting a brand sponsor on board, is work with someone that's already working with one of these brands. An agent is often one way to describe it, but there are two types of typical agents that brands work with. There is a media buying company. This is a company that will go out and buy all the ad space for that brand. They're paid by the brand to go and get the best deals possible and buy up ad space. You can talk to these media buyers, and often it can be better to talk to them than go direct to the brand, because the brand is too busy with its day-to-day to deal with you as a media owner. They would prefer to deal with the media buyer, one contact, and then that media buyer will deal with everybody that wants to sell media. So recently someone came to me and said they've got a fleet of vans and they want to get brands to advertise on their vans. And they tried going direct to brands and brands said no. I gave them a contact and a media buyer. The media buyer said great, and they bought all the inventory. It's much quicker. The media buyer has a relationship with the brands and often they hold the money. The brand's already allocated the money to the media buyer. So stop trying to sell to the brand, sell to the media buyer. The other way to do it is via the agencies. So I used to own an agency. It's one of the reasons I know this subject so well. But a brand will have a company that will come up with a campaign idea for them. Now, often when you're coming up with a campaign for a brand, you're also looking at how the campaign will be applied in the real world. So it might go on taxis, it might go on a bus, it might go on a coaster. So you can actually tap into these agencies. Examples without showing any preference, there's people like MC Saatchi, Ogilvy, Leo Burnett. These agencies already have the relationship with the company. And if you get in there with your idea or your product, they can often insert it or even come up with a campaign to sell it into the brand for you. Now, I personally prefer to deal with brands direct many times, but do not neglect media buyers are your friends and agencies can be your friends. And
so guys, looks like I'm out of time. I've been doing random shit and kind of, so I didn't really get to make a very productive day today, but that's okay. It's part of the life. It's just that I'm just overwhelmed with the idea of me getting a business. Am I one of those business guys now? Which is crazy, right? So yeah, guess we're fucking with that right now. Anyways, thank you for watching. I don't know if people are actually watching, but I appreciate, people